last class, we have started our discussion on nuclear weapon program of India. And in the nuclear weapon program of India, what we discussed in the previous class was nothing but the test of 1974. And we were about to start the discussion on the test of 1998. Now, 1974, there were just a brief recapitulation of the things. 1974, there were three tests, three explosions. All three were, please, all three were fission devices based on plutonium. Okay. Now, out of these three, one was a kiloton device. What is kiloton device? Where the yield is more than 1 kiloton with respect to trinitrotoluene. Okay. And two were sub-kiloton devices where the yield means the energy given by the explosion, is less than 1 kiloton with respect to TNT. Okay, that was the case. This type of test is the basis of what we call as a strategic nuclear weapon. Okay, yes. So this was the yield. Okay, and this is the basis of tactical nuclear weapon. Basically, if a country is going for no first use policy, they go for this type of weapon. And if a country is going for first use, they go for this thing. Why? Because here, it be on the lower side, number of weapons, but the strength of each weapon will be on the higher side. Okay. And here it is opposite. Number has to be higher, strength will be on the lower side. Fine. So ultimately it depends which policy you're going to have in future. Okay, that's the thing. So we were having both the options open. In 1974, if we could have wanted, we could have gone for first use policy or we could have gone for no first use policy. Then what happened after the 1974? Two things happened. First one, domestic. Domestic, very simple logical question. People who asked the Prime Minister in those days was that, ma'am, where are the missiles? Because without missiles, nuclear weapon is good for nothing. Because how you're going to use that weapon? That has to be carried by the missile. So that's where, after a few years, to be precise, towards the end of the 70s, means that decade, we started SLV-3 program. SLV-3, Satellite Launch Vehicle 3. And the purpose of this particular launch vehicle was to develop the technology for intermediate range ballistic missile. When this was done, after that, we started in 1983 Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. This is all interlinked. Nuclear weapon is also for the defense. Missile is also for the defense. So obviously, we have a tendency, means me and you both, that we try to read them separately. And that's where we fail to get that 360-degree perspective on the issue. Now, here we have Agni and Prithvi. You know, 5 Agnis. It can go to any number. We are already talking about Agni 6. And this, we have 3 Prithvis. All these 8 are nuclear capable. Besides that, Nirbhay, which is under testing. You have Sagarika, which is a part of Arihant, which is nuclear submarine. We have this Shaurya, which is again being tested. And we might be going for one more, Surya. And Surya will have the maximum range as far as we are concerned in terms of missiles. It is expected to touch 10,000 kilometers. Now, 10,000 kilometers, when you are not talking about China and Pakistan. You're talking about someone else, isn't it? Now, someone else is across the Atlantic and across the Pacific. You know, no, I'm not talking about Mexico, isn't it? So that's deterrence. That's deterrence, fine. So this is how, and again, such things are always they will in a continuous mode. They will keep on evolving with time. Now, after this, what happened? That there was formation of nuclear supplier group, and we had some discussion in the previous class. Nuclear supplier group is nothing but a cartel. Okay, again, let me tell you one thing. It has got nothing to do with the United Nations. It's an unofficial body where those countries who have the capacity to export nuclear technology or can export nuclear technology came together in 1974. And the purpose was to control the transfer. That if we will say no, nobody will give the technology. And to have the control, nuclear supply group function on the principle of consensus. Consensus means all the members have to say yes. Then only the decision is taken. And that is the problem. It is not majority based. If it is majority based, we would have already been a member of NSG. Because 38 countries were supporting out of 48, which is an overwhelming majority. But then even 47 saying yes, and one saying no, then the resolution will fail. This is how it works. This is how, yes, in present times it is going against us. So NSG says you want technology, 2 conditions. Sign NPT, okay, and second, adopt full scope safeguard. Full scope safeguard means it is virtually signing NPT. That all the nuclear facilities, now I am not talking about reactors, should come under the inspection of IAEA, present and future. Okay, sir, what about those which have been shut down? Obviously, they have already been shut down, means they are no more active. So that will not be the requirement. Fine. As far as membership is concerned, 5 requirements. NPT, capacity to export technology, preventing proliferation at the international level, preventing proliferation domestically, and capacity to export technology. In our case, we are fulfilling 4 out of 5 conditions. Okay, except the one you know which one we are not fulfilling. As of now, we have applied only once for the membership of NSG. Please remember, for preliminary. And that was June 2016 when NSG meeting was held in Seoul. Okay. Unfortunately, China and 9 other countries voted against us. Main opponent was China. Will not be going a bit rhetorical. I don't feel like अच्छा नहीं लगता हाँ आप लोग बहुत mature लोग हो बहुत हम reason based discussion यहाँ पर करेंगे. What is the reason China is opposing our entry into NSG? Simple. They want Pakistan to come into NSG. Why they want to bring Pakistan into NSG? So that they can increase the dependence of Pakistan on them. That's as simple as this. So Pakistan is looking for 32 reactors. As of now, Pakistan has just 3 reactors. 1 given by Canada, 2 given by China. So contrast, we have 24 reactors. And 2 were constructed by US, 1 by Canada, remaining at our own. Okay. So that's a simple comparison, if you see. But sir, then how come they have the nuclear weapon technology? Actually, there is a story. There was a person, he migrated from Bhopal during partition. His name was Abdul Qadir Khan. And he was the one who got nuclear technology from somewhere. And this is how they were able to develop the nuclear weapons, isn't it? So that's again proliferation. Why they want to bring? क्या होगा उससे? उससे ये होगा. All of us know what happened in Hambantota. China kept on giving money to Sri Lanka. Don't worry. You want money? Take it. One fine day, Mr. Xi Jinping knocked on the door of Sri Lankan president. भाई आज तो पैसे लेकर ही जाऊंगा. The difference between US and China is US gives money and forget. China gives money but never forgets. Sri Lanka said, sir, we don't have money. तो उन्होंने कहा हम्बनतोता है ना. Give me हम्बनतोता for 99 years. Same story will get repeated in future in Pakistan also. $60 billion is a very big amount. Again, one fine day, China will knock on the door of Pakistan's Prime Minister or President or whosoever is ruling, sir, with interest, this is the amount. If you don't have money, Gwadar to hai, 99 years. No, don't be happy. That will be a bigger challenge for us. That means permanent presence of China in our backyard. Isn't it? We should not be happy कि उनकी territory चली गई. We need to see our own interest. That's where we need, no, obviously we cannot help, but we could have helped Sri Lanka. That's why we gave some money to Maldives. When Xi Jinping comes and asks for money, give them money, but don't give any island. So this is what the situation is evolving. Sir, isse kya hoga if China will have these ports? Because when China will have these ports, means this is their investment, yes or no? And every country has a right to protect their investment. If tomorrow we acquire some island in South China Sea from Vietnam for 99 years on lease, then we will also have the same right, like they are trying to acquire in Indian Ocean region. So this is how the game is being played upon. Fine. And why they are doing this much for Pakistan? Simple. Mr. Xi Jinping's success or failure will be decided what happened to BRI. And no, it's not like anything else. And the success or failure of BRI depends what happens to CPEC. As simple as this. So whether we like it or not, this is the development which is taking place. And that's where the NSG issue comes into play. But then what China said? China said, sir, we will bring all the non-NPT countries into NSG. Now, non-NPT countries, when they're saying into NSG, they're talking about 4. India, Israel, North Korea, and Pakistan. Fine. And for this, they proposed a 2-step formula. Where, when they said this in June 2016, until date, forget about 2-step, even 1 step has not been unveiled by them. Because there is no such formula. Okay, so what is this? Simple delaying tactics. As simple as this. So you can say it is competition, you can say it is conflict, but this is how the situation is today. Now come to this, after 74, this is done and dusted. Yes. NPT is a treaty, NSG is a body. Okay, NPT is a formal arrangement, NSG is an informal arrangement. And to control the transfer of technology, they are using NPT as a tool. Are you getting my point? That's as simple as that. Now let me come to this after 74, what happened? After 74, when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister, he also wanted to conduct the nuclear test. But at the same time, he was looking to have supercomputer technology from USA. So people told him that, sir, either you can have nuclear test or you can have supercomputers. Because supercomputer is also dual-use technology. So they will not give you both. Choice is yours. So in the end, neither he was able to conduct the nuclear test nor able to get the supercomputer. When Mr. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister from 91 to 96, he was also keen to conduct the nuclear test. But this was the time he has just adopted this new model of economy, where it was liberalization, privatization, globalization. And we have just started enjoying higher rates of economic growth. Then people obviously gave him a right advice, sir, at this juncture, nuclear test and the sanctions, whatever little bit growth we are enjoying will be crippled permanently. Okay, so obviously that was a right advice given the scenario. So he also stopped. When Mr. Vajpayee became the Prime Minister in 96 for the first time for 13 days, he also wanted to conduct the nuclear test. But people told him first, please try to prove the majority, isn't it? When he became the Prime Minister again in 98, this time he has the majority with him. And then the nuclear test, second one was conducted. So as you again see, it's a continuous process. Okay. In 98, the name was Operation Shakti. Not Mission Shakti. Mission Shakti is different. Operation Shakti is different. This time there were 5 explosions. Out of 5, 4 were fission. In simple common parlance, don't write in the answer, atom bomb. And one was thermonuclear, which we call as fusion. Fusion, which we incorrectly call hydrogen bomb. So fundamental difference between the 1974 and the 1998 nuclear test was the fusion device, which was tested in 98. Okay. Now then some controversies were there. Controversy number 1. Uncle Sam was trying to propagate the rumors that fusion test has failed. Means it has not given the desired yield. So Mr. Kalam, APJ Kalam, who has overseen the conduction of these tests, he held a press conference and told the people, domestic journalists, international journalists, that look, we were expecting 43 kiloton yield and we got that. So if our expectations have been fulfilled, that means it is a success. But then 2 more things happened. After 10-15 days, Pakistan conducted the first nuclear test. So this was the first time they had the nuclear test. And one more development was the defense minister in those days, he made a statement which he should have avoided, that China is enemy number 1. Now China was not amused. They said, sir, ye to understood hai. Why you are saying it publicly, isn't it? Now when this happened, Mr. Vajpayee, obviously he was a visionary and he was a very balanced personality and a leader. He, in order to give a message to the global community, what was the message? The message was the purpose of nuclear weapon is not to attack anybody, rather it is to stop others from attacking us. Okay, that is deterrence. Okay, so what he did, he asked National Security Advisory Board, and National Security Advisory Board, no, don't draw any conclusion. It is nothing to do with the National Security Advisor. The body which functions under National Security Advisor is National Security Council Secretariat. Okay, so these are 2 different setups. National Security Advisory Board is a defense think tank of the government of India. It was headed by Mr. K. Subramanian. So Mr. Vajpayee asked Mr. Subramanian, do one thing, draft India's nuclear doctrine. What is nuclear doctrine? A set of do's and don'ts for others, not for us. That if you will not cross this line, means some red lines we have drawn, then we will not be using the nuclear weapon. Okay. This nuclear doctrine was made public in 1999. Okay, it was made public, not adopted. Please be clear with the words. And the purpose of making it public was to have a debate on it. Obviously, expertise can be other side as well. It is not that the entire expertise is on this side, isn't it? To have the debate and dissent are the essence of democracy, isn't it? But it must be constructive debate. The debate continued till 2003. It's a long time, isn't it? Finally, on 4th of January 2003, no need to remember the exact date, 4th of January 2003, this doctrine was adopted. Okay. Now this doctrine, when it was adopted, there were 3 schools of thought. Please listen. One school of thought was maximalism. Maximalism means, sir, at the first opportunity, we will use the nuclear weapon. That is first use. The other was rejectionism. Rejectionism means no need to have any doctrine. Horses for the courses. As per the situation, we should decide. The third was pragmatic school of thought. They said, no, sir. There should be a clear, not clear, some sort of a message. And we should go for the policy which should be as per our strength or weaknesses both. And that should be no first use. Finally, the pragmatic school of thought prevailed over the other 2. And we ended up having the no first use policy. Now, no first use, again, is one of the most misunderstood aspect of the nuclear doctrine. How it is misunderstood? Let's say. Some people say it's a sign of weakness. No, it's a sign of strength. Okay, because you know that you will be able to neutralize that And when you know you will be able to neutralize, fend off the attack, that's your strength, isn't it? No First Use says India will not be the first to use the nuclear weapons. But if attacked with nuclear weapons, we will go for massive retaliation. Massive means then we will take out the biggest bomb to cause unacceptable damage. Massive retaliation is important, and unacceptable damage is also important. This is known as second strike capability. Second strike is not something which some of you might be imagining, they have thrown a bomb and will throw a bomb. Second strike, I cannot give you a better example than this, is like boxing. The person is trying to, or the player is trying to protect itself, and at the same time will try to deliver a knockout punch. That is second strike. That is unacceptable. Knockout punch is unacceptable. Okay. To have second strike capability, it is mandatory that there should be nuclear triad. What is nuclear triad? I hope things are making sense. Nuclear triad is all the three wings, that is Army, Navy, Air Force, must have the mechanisms with them to use nuclear weapon. Especially Navy must have a submarine which can fire missile carrying nuclear weapon. So this nuclear triad was completed in 2009-10 when we manufactured Arihant. Okay, and today Arihant is a part of Indian Navy. Arihant is nuclear powered submarine. No, what is the meaning of nuclear powered? It doesn't have engine which uses diesel and all. Rather, in place of engine, it is having a nuclear reactor. That nuclear reactor provides the power. The good thing about using nuclear reactor is once you load the fuel, forget about refueling for years. Okay, but the negative aspect is once you have to refuel it, it will take almost a year. Because you need to take out the stuff, then you need to have this thing, then the fission will take time to build, isn't it? So simply having one Arihant will not make our nuclear triad credible, because when we are refueling it, that time our nuclear triad is not complete. So that's where we need minimum 4 to 5 Arihant type of submarines. That's where you might read in newspaper, we are building Aridman. Aridman is, please, him. Okay, Aridman. Aridman, you can say, is a sibling of Arihant. Okay, it will also be nuclear powered. It will also use the missile carrying nuclear weapon. Okay, so that's one aspect. No, story again is not over. So this is nuclear triad and second strike capability. Then what happened when we have the policy in 2003? Okay, so when we were having this policy being adopted in 2003, there was one change because of the debate and discussion we have. The change was, if a country, whether it is having nuclear weapon or not having nuclear weapon, it doesn't matter, uses biological or chemical weapons against India, like say it doesn't matter whether you are Bangladesh or China. Okay, and if you are going to use biological or chemical weapons against India, then India reserves the right to use nuclear weapon. So this is not done. Why it is not done? This is deterrence. What is the philosophy behind deterrence? Those philosophy student, political sciences student, and any civil service aspirant sitting in the classroom. Deterrence policy is simple, conveying a message, sir, your losses will be more than the benefits you will have. So if you will not use biological chemical weapons, we are not going to use the nuclear weapon. But sir, it is extreme. No. Take the policy of US. Be ready for the shock of your life. US had this policy called cyber deterrence, that if a country will carry out any type of cyber attack, against whom? Against US, then they might use nuclear weapons. Food for thought. Okay, someone will send a virus, computer virus, and then they will send nuclear weapons. US has first use policy. Russia has first use policy. India and China are the only two countries having no first use policy. Again, the story is not over. In 2010, National Security Advisor at that time, Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon, he gave a statement. And the statement given by him was that no first use is a pledge, means commitment, only towards non-nuclear weapon states. And he did not clarify it any further. He sat in his vehicle and left. So you keep on interpreting. The other side of the coin is, when it comes to nuclear weapons, we are not binded by the no first use. And a few days back, Mr. Rajnath Singh has also given certain statement like this, almost on the same lines. Okay, so that's how this situation is. No, these are not slip of the tongue type of a thing. These people are too mature to have such slip of tongues, isn't it? It is deliberate, and the purpose is to convey a message, isn't it? Not domestically across the border. Okay, that is the purpose of such slip of tongues, if you want to call it. Fine. Then again, at times there are debate in our countries, and it is good that we should have debates, that we should move from no first use to first use. That's fine, we can change our policy. It is not binding that we should always have no first use. हमने कोई law नहीं बनाया इसके लिए. A simple tweet, nowadays most of the things happen on tweet itself, isn't it? By the government of India or anyone representing government of India will change the policy. Okay, but then no first use has its own pluses. What are those pluses? First and foremost, very simple point. If two countries are having no first use policy, then the possibility of a nuclear war is minimum. Because that Lucknowi culture, na, pehle aap, isn't it? That's one thing. So practically speaking, nuclear war between India and China, possibility is very remote. On the contrary, if the two countries are having first use policy, then the possibility of a nuclear war, maximum. Because both will use the nuclear weapon at the drop of the hat. Isn't it? That's it. A nuclear weapon war is not good for anybody. So what else? It was no first use which helped us to get a special clean waiver from NSC. Don't forget that. It was no first use which played a very important role when Japan signed the nuclear deal with us, despite the fact we are not a member of NPT. So if we will change the policies, these two options will be gone. Because then Japan or US will not be able to convince their people. So this country is saying that they will use nuclear weapon as first. Then on what basis you can continue with the nuclear cooperation? And it will be virtually impossible for the government of those respective countries to convince their people. Again, one more thing. When we are having no first use policy, what we are doing, listen here, I have already mentioned. You can avoid the participation in arms race. Credible minimum deterrence, minimum number of nuclear weapons to cause maximum damage. But when you are having first use, you must have more weapons than your adversary. Because once you start the attack, you will not be like, sir, now your turn. Ek koi test match to chal nahi raha. Okay, so now your turn. So you will continue with the attacks, theoretically speaking, until unless you achieve your desired result. And for that, you must have more weapons than your adversary. And this is what we call as arms race. One more point. By moving from no first use to first use, please listen, some of you are not. We are putting our political leadership under too much of a pressure. You know, there are always some people, everywhere, always, who will be saying, sir, why we are having these nuclear weapons? यूज क्यों नहीं कर रहे हो? अटैक करो. Okay, and you just imagine now, then the political leadership will be in a dilemma. If we can antagonize these people, then they will not press the desired button on EVM. But if you go for the attacks, then internationally it will have the repercussions, isn't it? And obviously it is not good to put your political leadership under this type of pressure. Okay, one more thing. Now people should also have some level of maturity. Okay, and all of us have seen the type of comments on social media, isn't it? So that's just imagine if these people will have a say, what will happen? We will be fighting war every day with someone or the other. So that's where it is always better to not give the control in such hands.